It's been a long time coming, but after 13 years, multiple failed playoff runs, and a COVID outbreak that ended their season last year, the Philadelphia Union are finally in the MLS Cup, and they're finally also getting the respect they deserve. Or are they? We'll break that down, plus the most bizarre World Series that anyone can remember, and the Eagles' 7-0 start here on this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. As always, I'm your host, Aiden Tuzinski, and I'm joined by a slightly smaller panel, but still happy to have you guys here. Siobhan, Siobhan, how are you doing?
I'm doing so good right now.
And Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great.
So to start off, we're going to go to the team that just entered their first championship, as we teased in the opener, the Philadelphia Union. Absolutely amazing game in the Eastern Conference Final against NYCFC, winning 3-1 after falling down 1-0 on Sunday night. As I said, first MLS Cup appearance ever, and they'll be facing LAFC. Siobhan, what were your thoughts on this very, very stressful game?
I'm not going to lie. When NYCFC scored first, my immediate reaction was, nope, it's over. That's it. We messed it up. But I'm really glad that they did pull it back 3-1, which is absolutely amazing. The offense really just turned it on when they needed to. Alejandro Bedoya had to come off in midfield, but then Jack McGlynn came on and replaced him and did absolutely beautifully. So I think it was a great performance overall, and they absolutely deserve to win, and they more than deserve to be in the MLS Cup after the season they've had. So I'm definitely very happy with how everything turned out.
No, it was definitely a very thrilling game. It was also very, very competitive. NYCFC was doing everything they could to win the game legally and maybe not as well.
Yeah.
How much does that say to both the coaching staff and the players to keep their cool heads to still prevail in this game?
I mean, it's always something that you want to focus on with your team, and especially when you have the Union, who have some fiery personalities. Jose Martinez is definitely known for his accumulation of yellow cards and his hot-headedness. So thankfully, you don't have yellow card accumulation going into the MLS Cup, but obviously it's playoffs. This is what teams work for the entire season. So I completely get the fact that tempers are flaring, emotions are high, but you don't want to get a red card. You don't want anyone to get in any sort of trouble. So I get it, but at the same time, as a viewer, I'm just like, calm down, please.
Yeah. No, 100%. Because like you said, as the viewer, you both want them to keep their heads cool, but at the same time, you were completely freaking out as well watching that game.
The things that I say during games, like I can't get mad at them.
No, I'm the same way, but they won, very thrilling. The city is also now talking about them. Not always in the best light. I mean, so to start off, the radio stations didn't mention them. Didn't really mention the players, but they did mention that they're still in the finals, which is a step above what they usually do. I also did hear this called the MLS World Cup, which it's not, unfortunately. No. But, I mean, here's the thing. The city's never really talked about the Union at all. It's going to be a learning curve for a lot of reporters that now are covering a team that they don't really know, that they're just starting to follow. How important is that, at least for the Union base, to now be talked about in the city?
I think it's really important. I'm disappointed that it took us literally going to the Cup finals for people to finally start paying attention. I think if you're a Philadelphia sports journalist and you don't you aren't assigned to cover a specific team, you not knowing the Union is you not doing your job properly. And again, I never want to gatekeep a team. The more Union fans, the better. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to see people, talking about it and posting about it when it's like it's bandwagoning. And if there's one thing that I cannot stand, it's bandwagoning. And it's like, as someone who has been there from the very beginning, who literally went to the very first Union home game back in 2010, it's something that I hold very dear to my heart, and it's something that I'm very protective over. So I'm glad that there's recognition, but again, you can't just be mentioning them just to mention it just because that's what's happening. Like, know what you're talking about and know that just like the Eagles and the Phillies and the Flyers and the Sixers mean so much to so many people, this team also means so much to so many people. And especially because soccer is the world sport, it's a global sport, I think it deserves a lot more respect, because if you can respect the Eagles playing in the Super Bowl where there's 100 million viewers, fine, I get that, but then you have to respect a sport that has the World Cup, which draws in over 1 billion viewers. So I think when you think of it in that context, there needs to be more diligence there as well.
Yeah, I know that we went a little bit more negative there, but on the positive side, the fans were awesome as well.
Oh, always. The atmosphere in Subaru Park is just, it's incredible. And I think that's a big reason why they remain undefeated at home, is just the Sons of Ben in the stadium in general. I mean, everyone's on their feet, everyone's being loud the whole game, so it's such a special thing to be a part of when you're there.
Yeah, so we've also talked on the show a lot about their homegrown players, the guys that they've really worked with to go, but their international stars really stepped up. Julian Carranza scored one of the goals, the other one was scored by Dino Gazak, which is pretty obvious he was going to score on, and Corey Brooks as well. You've got Carranza, who's from Argentina, Gazak from Hungary, and Berg is from Jamaica. All international guys all scored the game-winning goals for the Union. How important is it for the Union to have developed these international stars to really step up in this very key game for them?
It's so important because Carranza's pretty young as well. He's only like 21, 22, and he's on loan from Miami. So the fact that he's been able to integrate so just kind of seamlessly into the club is great. Daniel Gazak is just having the season of his life. I would have been surprised if he hadn't scored or assisted. And Corey Berg is a little bit on the older side, but being from Jamaica as well as Andre Blake and Olivier Bizo, that's always just really amazing national team representation. They call him Scoryberg, which I love. But no, it's great because the more international talent that you have in MLS and the Union specifically, it just legitimizes it more because, yes, it's an American league, but the more international talent you have, especially on the younger side, it does wonders for the development of the league as a whole.
It's also pretty amazing that the Union were able to get all these international stars. I mean, you hear a lot of international players going to places like LA, and when Miami got a team, people were talking about Miami getting a lot of international stars. Philly was not talked about that much for international players, and the fact that they've gotten this many is really incredible.
And I'm honestly kind of glad because the big international stars that you hear about coming to MLS are guys in their late 30s, and that's why MLS is often referred to, unfortunately, as a retirement league, is because you get the aging superstars that can't make it in Europe, so they come to MLS. And so I'm kind of glad that the Union aren't the kind of choice destination for that because it gives us more room to develop players. It gives us more room to have players in their prime and not have to deal with aging, stuck-up, European superstars. So honestly, I'm just glad that any player of that caliber wants to come to MLS, but I'm glad the Union can stay with their academy and stay with maybe the lesser-known guys, but that turn out to be hidden gems.
So their championship game on Saturday is against LAFC. It's going to be a huge game for them. LAFC finished first in the entire MLS, won the Supporters' Shield, beat Austin FC pretty decisively 3-0. How are your feelings about this game?
I think it's going to be really exciting. This is the first Cup final where two #1 seeds have faced each other in over a decade. And I really think LAFC, obviously, in order to be the best, you have to beat the best. So I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous because, LAFC they've been on a tear all season. They've been the team to beat, and so while I do think the Union have a fighting chance, I just want to be cautiously optimistic, but I really think they can run with it. LAFC, they can play with them. It's just two very different styles of play colliding, so I'm very interested to see how it plays out, but I think they're up for the challenge, and hopefully they just don't get psyched out too much and can just play it like it's a regular game.
That'll be a very interesting game for sure. We're now going to jump to a team that's also in their championship. The Phillies are in the World Series that we talked about last week, and it's been a very interesting ride. They split their first two games in Houston, series tie 1-1. They had an amazing game one. They were down 5-0, came back to win game one 6-5 on a game-winning homer in the 10th inning by JT Realmuto. They also got no hit in game four. They became just the third team in postseason history to get no hit. Let's talk about the positive side to start first. Game one, they were down 5-0, like I said. It looked like they were dead in the water at this point, and they just slowly chipped away at this lead and were able to win. What were your feelings about that game?
Yeah, just like they've been doing all year, and even in the playoffs, they never die. And even, Nola, it's a shame because we were praising him that he's, finally got over that September hump and pitching great late in the season, but these past two games have just not been in this World Series, and even the second game in the Padres series. It's kind of been concerning, but, the bullpen, they lifted him up. Eflin, Sranthony, Ranger, bringing in Ranger by Thompson ended up being a great decision, and he continued to make all the right decisions. last night you could probably debate if he took out Nola and putting in Alvarado, if that was the right decision. But, that's another debate for another time. But I think, that game one, it was great. But then, obviously the no-hit yesterday, not great. But we'll see how they respond tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely, the game last night was a little concerning to see because you were kind of hoping that they would come back like they did in the first one. But, it's tied 2-2. It's definitely not getting boring. So as much as I would love for them to, kind of establish more of that dominance and just kind of end this before it has to go to a game 7, I think they still have it. It's just a matter of they kind of have to keep their head in the game the whole way and not kind of pick and choose when they want to be in it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just been crazy to see that they've played so well in some games and just haven't in the others. What is the biggest way to get that consistency that they need through the rest of the series?
Yeah, I mean, they just have to, just like they all say, just flush it and move on because, we've seen, I mean, this happened earlier in the year. I know Thompson said it. They did get no hit. I forget who it was.
Mets.
The Mets.
Yep.
They got no hit against the Mets, and they responded with a win the next game. So, I mean, I know it's the World Series. I know they are in history books now, but, you just got to move on and just, they've been good. You just got to look at the whole postseason. They've been good. They've been able to respond when they lost, so they just got to take it. They did it earlier in Game 2. They responded in Game 3 with hitting 5 home runs. So we'll see how they take it tonight, and I'm confident that they can, bounce back from last night's no-hitter.
And the thing that I love the most about this Phillies team is that they are very clearly not intimidated by the Astros and the situation they're in. I saw one tweet that said that they're just too naive to know that they should be scared. And honestly, that might be a little backhanded, but I think it's true that they are just so focused on themselves and their team that they're not letting anything get into their heads, and maybe they just want to do the best they can, and in turn it kind of messes with their focus. But I think that them not being so easily intimidated is one of their strengths, and hopefully it can translate into a win tonight.
Yeah, so before we talk about Game 3, the other crazy historical fact about this no-hitter, the manager of the last team to get no hit in the playoffs, Dusty Baker, who was also the manager for the Astros, so just completely crazy coincidental stuff. But Game 3 was also historical in the sense that the Phillies' offense was just amazing. They hit 5 home runs in Game 3. They tied the record for the most home runs in a World Series game. They also broke the record for most home runs in 2 innings, inning 3. What was, just watching that game, how awesome was it to just see the offense go off like that?
It makes you want to run through a brick wall. You're just like, yes, go, keep going. And it's the kind of stuff that gets the city excited, and that's why people are climbing the poles and rioting in the streets. And, that's what you love to see, and that's what is going to be played on repeat in seasons to come, when they're reminiscing about the 2022 World Series, because we don't make it here often, unfortunately. So the fact that we're here and we're putting on a show is such a great thing. So it just gets you so fired up, and I love it.
Yeah, it was good to see when they take a lead that they didn't just kind of back down, because you can't do that with the Astros. Even though the Astros didn't score a run the rest of the game, the bullpen did a great job, but you just have to keep adding, and the Phillies have done that all postseason. And when they take a lead, they don't stop. They keep it going, and Castellanos started off the game with a great catch again. It's like the same. Looks like the same play as the other 2 plays in the season, in the postseason. So, it's great to see, but Castellanos' bat, for the most part, everybody in the lineup's been good, but his bat has still been terrible. And then Marsh, I know he had a home run in that game, but he's still kind of been, looks like lost at the plate. But he had a good game. Hopefully he can build off that. But, yeah, it was fun to see, but, obviously it didn't really carry over to Game 4.
No, I think that also just plays into the fact that the idea that they're very confident. You saw that they have already hit the Astros once. I'm sure they feel like they can do it again. The other storyline that's been happening, though, besides how crazy that these games have been, has been a possible scandal by the Astros in multiple games of cheating allegations. The first game in Martin Maldonado, the catcher, caught using an illegal bat in Game 1, and then Framber Valdez was suspected of using some sort of substance, probably spider tack, which pitchers use to get better control of off-speed pitches. It is illegal in baseball. They have been checking for it. None of these guys got in any trouble at all. What are your guys' takeaways from these allegations?
Yeah, it's kind of just funny on the broadcast. Smoltz and Davis were kind of just like, oh, yeah, Maldonado used an illegal bat in Game 1 that Pujols gave him. It's kind of like they just brushed over it, and you're just like, you can't do that. And, I know the MLB's reason. I know Pujols, he was able to use it because it was grandfathered in. But I don't understand the MLB. It's all about safety, but they didn't want players using this bat because it's unsafe, but they're all about safety. It's another decision by the MLB. We're kind of just like, but we know what the Astros with their history with cheating. You don't want to use that as an excuse, but you are curious sometimes. Thompson, I think, reacted to it perfectly. Like, they see it, but they're not going to use it as an excuse or a way as, that's why we lost the game.
Yeah, I mean, if they can win an entire World Series with a very obvious and proven cheating method with the trash cans and still not have that title taken away from them, I'm not confident about any of it. And I know everyone loves to say it's like Philly versus everyone. No one likes us, we don't care. So I think just keep that mindset, and it's even funnier if they do cheat and they still lose. So I think, like Rob Thompson said, it's not an excuse. They see it, they know it. But at the end of the day, it's still up to the Phillies to play the best they can to win.
I mean, the Nationals won the 2019 World Series with the Astros probably cheating in that one as well. It seemed like that's what MLB came up with. So they can lose in that one. The Phillies can definitely beat them, regardless of what happens. But these next few games are definitely going to be tough. You've got Game 5 coming up. Justin Verlander on the mound versus Noah Syndergaard. This seems like a possible mismatch, but Verlander's really struggled in World Series, so we'll see how that goes. Game 6 and 7, Saturday and Sunday in Houston. Game 7, if necessary. So these are definitely going to be very stressful games for Phillies fans. How are you guys feeling going into these next couple of games?
Yeah, I mean, this game tonight is a must-win, especially with Wheeler's status being unknown. You don't know, with the fatigue and his arm. So tonight's a must-win. But, if you lose, I mean, obviously the season's not done, but going back to Houston down 3-2, it's tough. And I think Valdez is slated to start Game 6. So, it's going to be tough, but this team has persevered all year, and we've seen it in the playoffs. So I'm confident that they can, do something magical.
Yeah, it is stressful. It's a stressful situation, but hopefully they can gain that confidence back and pull through. And if we have to win the World Series in Houston, we have to win it in Houston. And it's been a fun one so far. So I think even if it doesn't pan out the way we wanted to, we can take pride in knowing that they gave us a good World Series to watch.
Yeah, I do want to point out that it's going back to the National Series just because it feels so similar. The Nationals did win Game 7 in Houston. It's not impossible to do. It's going to be challenging for sure, but it's something the Phillies feel they're confident in. We feel confident behind them. It's definitely going to be an interesting series the rest of the way out. We're now going to jump to another successful team in this city. At this point, it just feels like it's getting old, even though I really don't want to say that. It just is. The Eagles won another game. This is definitely their most dominant win by far, beating the Steelers 35-15 on Sunday, improving to 7-0. Jalen Hurts, unbelievable game, 19 of 28, 285 passing yards, 4 passing TDs. Got pulled at the end of the fourth quarter because they were up by so much. Miles Sanders, 9 carries, 78 yards, a touchdown. He's been playing very solid. A.J. Brown, unbelievable, 6 receptions, 156 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Did get called for a penalty at the end for celebrating that third touchdown. But what was your biggest takeaway of this game, especially the Hurts-A.J. Brown connection?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have to take a second and praise Howie Roseman that he went out and got A.J. Brown. I mean, he's literally changing this offense. And I know Hurts has made improvements. He's better throwing the ball, but adding A.J. Brown, the type of receiver he is, it's taken them to new levels. And he has the most yards through 7 games since T.O. did in 2005. And they got to the Super Bowl that year. I know T.O. was hurt most of the year when he returned to the Super Bowl, and obviously McNabb and T.O.'s connection doesn't seem as good as Hurts and Brown's relationship. But yeah, it's been so fun to watch, and I just hope that they can both stay healthy and just keep it up, and the sky's the limit for them.
Especially when you look at that offense, it's just been so solid. It doesn't really seem like there's any holes. They were talking about maybe trading for Kareem Hunt at the deadline. It didn't happen. Do you still feel pretty positive about this offense, even though they didn't do that?
Yeah, I mean, everything's working so good right now. I think the only thing I really thought was maybe like wide receiver depth a little bit. But besides that, I think, if it's not broke, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, I mean, you just got to keep – I think it was good that Howie just did not do anything. Obviously, they made the Robert Quinn on defense. But besides that, I mean, I think the offense is good. Just leave it how it is and just keep improving. And that's what Hurts and the whole offense has been doing all year.
Yeah, we'll say the last guy to catch a touchdown pass in the game, the only other receiver to catch a touchdown pass was Zach Pascal, who's the 4th-string wide receiver. So they are pretty deep overall. The standings still are, the Eagles now are in a much more solid place now that the Giants lost to the Seahawks. The Cowboys did win their game. They have Dak Prescott back. They're both 6-2. The Commanders have looked a little bit more solid in past weeks. This win was so huge, and the fact the Giants lost, now the Eagles are much more solid. Do you see them any chance of losing the NFC East?
No, I think the Cowboys are just the contender against the Eagles. I think the Giants, that loss to the Seahawks proved that they're having a good season, but they're not as good as their record said. And the Commanders, I think, are a better team with Taylor Heineke as their quarterback. But yeah, I still think it's the Eagles' division to lose, and I think they're in good shape. So they just have to keep riding this hot streak and just see where it takes them.
So their next big game is Thursday night. They're playing tonight against the Texans. Texans are a very, very bad team. They're 1-5-1, fourth in the AFC, which is already a weak division to begin with. The Eagles are playing at 8:15. The Texans' defense has also been absolutely terrible. They've allowed 405 yards per game. Mike, how do you see this game shaping up?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have any problems with it. I hope not, so we can kind of just focus on the Phillies tonight. But I think the one issue that the Eagles might run into is their run defense has still been a little shaky, and they got a really good rookie in Dameon Pierce over there. So, but I think if they can just hold him, and if you just look at their roster, there's nothing to be scared of. I think they'll take care of business tonight and go back to Philadelphia against Washington next week, still undefeated.
Yeah, so I don't want to be that person to look ahead in the schedule, but you have to at this point. Like, you're playing the Texans, it's a bad team. They've got a lot of other easy opponents, and then the schedule gets hard at the end of the year. Do you think that they will sort of lower their expectations, could lose to a team that potentially they should beat?
Yeah, I mean, especially with, because this is not really a veteran team. This is still a younger team with a young head coach. So they might run into a game where they're just, too confident, too cocky, and they lose. And maybe that's something, you need. I mean, sometimes you need to lose to really just get to where you want to be. So I think it's bound to happen. And if it does happen, we can't be mad at it. Just look at, how good they've been this season. But it's all how they respond. So we'll see how the rest of the season, plays out.
So we talked a lot about the offense for this game. The defense also is going to have to play well. Like you said, there's a lot of guys that are very young in Texas. They're not a good team at all. But how do you think the defense is going to have to play in this game, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to the Steelers. I mean, they haven't really played – if you look at the offense that they play, they haven't really played an explosive offense yet this year. And the Texans are probably – one of the worst offenses they've played. So I don't think they're going to have any problems. Davis Mills is Davis Mills. You got Cooks. But, yeah, I think what I said earlier, Dameon Pierce might be the only problem that they give them just because their run defense has been a little shaky. And I think he could win Offensive Rookie of the Year if he keeps us up. So, but, yeah, I still don't think they'll have any problems tonight.
Yeah, it will just be interesting how they play against the run game because they have gotten beaten down by running backs at the end of games, sort of have looked a little bit fatigued. So we'll see how that plays out. We're now going to go to Fast Five, or we're going to jump to multiple topics, not just in Philadelphia this week. One of the biggest storylines has been the Brooklyn Nets. They have been very dysfunctional this year. They're 2-6. We're projected to be an Eastern Conference final contender. They don't look like that right now. Mike, what is their biggest worry?
Yeah, they're terrible, and I think it was good that they fired Nash. And obviously, they're getting what the Simmons effect exactly what he did here. He's putting up the same, if honestly, worse stats. I mean, at least he was averaging 15 points a game here. I don't think he's gotten over 10 points in the first 6 games. So I know the Sixers are struggling to start this year, but that organization is just dysfunctional right now. Obviously, the Kyrie situation. And I wouldn't be surprised if KD just forces his way out, if not in the middle of this year, at the end of next year.
It was pretty shocking that KD was still with the Nets because he asked for a trade in the summer, and the fact he's still there is beyond unbelievable at this point. We're now going to jump to talking soccer with Siobhan.
So we're in November, which oddly enough means that we are in a World Cup month. Starts November 21st in Qatar. I don't want to say get your hopes up for the U.S. national team because unfortunately Greg Berhalter is still the head coach, and I'm not having high hopes for his squad because I think it's going to be a lot of 34, 35-year-old guys past their prime and then a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are just kind of starting out. It's going to be a lot of guys' first World Cup, and I'm hoping that they at least make it out of the group stages because they have a pretty winnable group with the exception of England, but I don't see them winning it all this year, and that's fine because I would rather see them win in 2026 on home soil. But it's still exciting to have one, so I'm very, very excited to see that happen.
Very interesting at the World Cup in November and not in the summer. Our next topic is back to the NFL. There's 2 6-1 teams left. Obviously, the Eagles are above everyone else. The Bills and the Vikings are 6-1. Mike, who do you think the best 6-1 team is?
Yeah, it's the Bills. And then, you got Josh Allen, who's probably on pace to win MVP this year. And then I think that win a couple weeks ago against the Chiefs just put them, I think they're behind the Eagles, but they're still the clear number 2 team, the best team in the AFC, in my opinion. They beat the Packers. I know the Packers aren't the same last week, but in my opinion, it is the Bills, and I think they'll just get better, each week.
The Bills head coach was wearing a Union shirt.
Was he?
Yeah, I saw him wearing. They posted it on their Instagram. He was wearing a Union jacket. So
Very, very cool. I'm glad that there's more union representation
I
around
know.
different
Yeah,
leagues.
McDermott's got those Philly ties.
Oh
So.
yeah, yes he does. And it's been very cool to see the way the Bills are playing, the way that they've struggled as a franchise overall. They're now looking very solid. And honestly, it's fair to argue that they might even be better than the Eagles. Yes, they have the one loss, but man, they've just been dominating everyone in the AFC. We're now going to go to college football, where I have a bone to pick with everyone doing the rankings right now. First of all, the AP poll, the coaches poll, and the college football playoff poll all have Alabama, has one loss over an undefeated TCU team, and it makes absolutely no sense. I understand that Alabama is always going to be in the top. I understand that the college football world wants Alabama in the playoff every year. I understand all that. But TCU has been playing unbelievable this year. They are clearly the best team in the Big 12. There was no reason for them to be behind Alabama. And if TCU wins with one loss, the Big 12, and Alabama doesn't win the SEC and still makes it to the football playoff with one loss, it shows that the committee is very flawed, that they needed to expand the playoffs much sooner than they're saying that they're going to be doing it in 2024, 2025. They need to do it this year if that's the way that they're going to do their rankings. Our final question is back to Philadelphia. There's two huge games tonight between the Phillies and Eagles. Which one are you guys going to be watching?
I'm tuning into the Phillies. I know that the Eagles are on a great run right now, but it's the World Series, and it's going to be a pretty decisive game. I think whoever takes this one, it's a big one. So I'm definitely tuning into the Phillies tonight.
Yeah, the Phillies have my priority, but I'll have the Phillies on my main TV, and then I'll have the Eagles on because they're on Amazon Prime. So I'll have the Eagles on my phone, or I'll put on their own mic on the 94 app. So, but obviously, I think, like Ron said, it is the Phillies. It's the World Series, and but they're both two big games. But yeah, I think it still is the Phillies, but I'll try to watch both.
Yeah, not trying to downplay the Eagles game at all by saying they're playing the Texans. This would be the first time they ever get off to an 8-0 start in franchise history, which is still a very awesome achievement for them, for sure. And also, I'm going to do the whole split screen thing. I'm going to be out tonight, so I'm going to have my phone on one side, the computer on the other, pull up both games, maybe a little bit switching in between.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, the thing is, you got to go with both of them the way that it is. Thank you so much for tuning in this week to Sports Talk Philadelphia. As always, follow us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at SportsTalk LTV. We hope that you guys enjoyed this episode and tune into the next one. Thank you so much for watching.